there's a reason why Adam and Eve is first in the Bible. And it's because if you don't get this right, your relationships will never succeed. Society won't succeed. And everything after this will be built on quicksand. You have to lay the base down. You have to get this part. You have to understand this part.
Why are modern women like this? Everywhere you look, there are self-proclaimed girl bosses chasing dominance and female empowerment, especially the growing number of middle-aged, childless career women. And yet, they remain the most depressed and anxious demographic. The Bible has an answer.
One thing that people don't realize often is that how powerful stories and narratives are. And there's weak narratives out there that you can just kind of bat away with fact, a fact here, logic there. But when you're having a hard time pointing to something that's good, a moral good, sometimes logic and reason, are not the best tools, but a story can really nail it home. It can really pin you down and pin down the truth of the situation and why it's good. Well, in the Adam and Eve story, the thing about it that's so hyper true is that both men and women have a weakness. A woman's weakness is the snake, not Adam. Adam can try to manipulate her and she'll just tell him to go get fucked. That's not women's weakness. Women aren't manipulated by men that easily. But they are manipulated by society and by, things that they wish were true. That gets a woman going. And men, that doesn't get us going. The snake can talk to us and be like, well, don't you wish you could? I'm like, yeah, but we're not. So why even think about it? And we'll just knock it away. But a woman will come up after she's been listening to the snake, the woman will come up to manipulate, and here we go. She's going to give you the doe eyes, and she's going to get you going, well, why don't I get to do? And then the next thing you know, society's degenerating, which is a great metaphor for the things that we're going through today. The relationship between men and women and the differences and the warnings that you need to heed for society to succeed.
In Genesis, both Adam, representative of men, and Eve, representative of women, are cursed, forced to endure the natural consequences of a sinful world. These curses hit us where we're most vulnerable and are tailored to both sexes. They cause misery on an individual level and on a collective scale have contributed to the collapse of civilizations throughout history.
That's a really good way to put it, that these hit our weaknesses, our individual weaknesses, men and women both, and it causes, on an individual level, suffering and misery, but on a civilizational level, it is degenerative and very destructive. If you look at the history of these ideas, that's 100% true.
Genesis 3:16. To the woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children.
Well, that's not
your
as true
desire
as it used to
will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. What I just read was the NIV translation. But if I read the ESV translation, you'll notice the second half is different. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. The translations don't match and even seem to contradict. This is a telltale sign that there's a word here that the translators are struggling with. A trick when dealing with such a situation is to find the same words being...
And I love this about the Bible and religion in general, but especially the Bible, that it has such a low barrier for entry. You can get children in, they can understand the basic concept of the ideas, but it's basically endlessly nourishing. Like, some of the greatest minds have pondered the Bible their entire existence, and there's people that study the Bible their whole life, and it's some of the stories are infinitely deep.
Is to find the same words being mistranslated in another passage, and then infer from context. In our case, Genesis 4:7, which is about how sin is seeking to control Cain and motivate him to murder his brother. On screen, you're seeing both translations. They are a perfect match. Alternatively, you can also look at the original Hebrew, which I'm also putting on screen, proving it's a match. Therefore, from context, we know exactly what this hard-to-translate word means. To control, to usurp, to dominate someone's authority or decision-making power.
Wow. Control, usurp, and dominate. That's egalitarian feminism. That's what you got, guys. Control, usurp, and dominate. I mean, it's hard to deny that that's exactly what's been happening.
Therefore, the curse of Eve could read as, your desire will be to usurp your husband's authority, but he shall rule over you. Remembering that Adam and Eve are
Oh
stand-ins for
God.
men and women as a whole, this means women will desire to usurp men's authority, but they shall never succeed. Men will always rule over them. This drive to usurp male authority and reject complementary rules is exactly what we see packaged today as egalitarian feminism. The Bible repeatedly affirms the authority of men. On screen, you'll see some verses showing exactly that. And yet, that has not stopped women throughout history from trying. Indeed, there are women who do not submit to their husbands, and often control them in turn. Does this make God a liar? Obviously not.
No, absolutely not. He gives people free will. What the Bible does is it lays a template for things that you are likely to encounter in your life, the natural, impulsive, instinctual way that you'll want to go, and why that's bad, and that using your higher faculties and morality will lead you to a better outcome for you, your family, and society. I say this all the time, but it's 100% true that you're supposed to sacrifice yourself as an individual for the good of your family, and it gets bigger, your town, your city, state, your country. But in modernity, what we're taught to do is to sacrifice the world, our nation, our state, our town, our family for ourselves. There's that saying that you hear sometimes that I believe is true. It's way too often the case that it's true, and it's that men will sacrifice their own happiness for their family. Women will sacrifice their family for their own happiness. Tragic.
She may reject her husband's or father's leadership, for example, but she will always end up submitting to some man. Whether that's her boss, a boyfriend, a guru, or cultural trends set by powerful men. She trades out a legitimate authority that's committed to her welfare for an illegitimate authority with no such obligations under the illusion of choice.
I love that it's just throwing money at her. I saw a statistic one time, and I can't remember the exact source for this or the exact numbers, but I know it was something like that the average woman in her lifetime will receive over six figures from the government in programs and welfare and different initiatives and tax refunds, but the average man will pay in well over $100,000. I believe it was something like 200 plus for the woman and a negative 150 or so for the man.
Contrary to popular opinion, feminism is not new. Every time a society has tried it, the pattern is the same. Plummeting birth rates, rising social degradation, insecurity, and turmoil, eventually followed by a harsh masculine reaction that leaves women with fewer freedoms than before.
And that could very well happen. And I think something like that is pretty likely to happen in the West, because if we keep going the direction we're going, everything's going to collapse and somebody else is going to have a say. I don't know. It might not be us, but somebody's going to be king of the ashes. Or we can put our foot down and say we're done going down this road. We're gonna we're not gonna do the fall of Adam. We're gonna put our foot down and stop being manipulated. And we're gonna start doing what's good for society. And I don't care if that makes you unhappy as an individual, but society itself is going to thrive.
Whereas most societies are designed around helping people deal with our flawed human nature, our modern societies are hell-bent on enabling it. Girls are pitted against boys in school. Movies and TV present men as incompetent idiots. Our society vilifies and demeans the natural role of women, and instead glorifies masculine endeavors.
And speaking on that, the idea that women, it's such a half-truth. That's why it's so dangerous, is because there's a kernel of truth, but it's only telling half the story. You could just as easily say that men were slaves. We were the ones that were being forced into the workplace. We didn't get to see our families. We were having to slave away and not see, anybody, while our women took the upper hand against us. And, that's just as true as that women had were slaves to men and having to stay home and watch the children while the men got to work. I mean, you talk about what an absolute misrepresentation. Men could have said women got to stay home and, with just as much utility as men got to work. It just shows how little thought and what a huge advantage that is for women, that we spend all of our time looking at things from their point of view. To such an extent that they haven't even put in a kernel of thought that from a man's perspective, he doesn't get to work. He doesn't see it as I get to work. He does what he has to do to be a productive member of society and to get the things that he needs and support people, in his family and community.
Fatherhood is reduced to nothing more than a paycheck. Older, childless women hide their depression and preach about how great their lives are to younger women, the complete opposite of what the apostles command, because misery loves company.
Boy, does it ever.
And as a result, the word of God is reviled and labeled misogynistic.
Reality is misogynistic. I mean, if you want to get right down to it, it made us different for a reason. I mean, biology. If you even want to get down to evolutionary biology, why is it that men are the stronger, more capable fighters, are more upper body strength, are able to do more physical labor, our hands are strong to manipulate the environment? Why would that be? Is it because we had it easier? Is it because we got to sit on our butts all day? Is it because we got to crack a whip and have everybody else do things for us? Or is it because we had to suffer? If we didn't have that, the men that didn't have that died and they didn't reproduce. That why? It's obvious who had it very, very, very difficult. So, I mean, even biology and this sciences really don't lie. We have all these initiatives to keep from looking into all these kind of things. I think in certain countries, looking into genetic evidence to why things turn out the way that they do with different groups of people is outlawed, but it really shouldn't be, because the truth will set you free.
For not affirming modernity's delusions. If you want to fix this, it starts with you. Stop listening to preachers who never risk offending your sensibilities. Stop treating church like a weekly motivation and affirmation session. Forget how offensive something sounds. Focus only on how true it is.
I absolutely love that. Forget how something sounds and think about only how true it is. And it's so true. I mean, we kept the feminine part of the Christian story, and we talk about the forgiveness and all these parts all the time, but we forgot about the masculine side. The flaming sword of judgment that burns away the parts of you that aren't what they could be. It's like if you're mostly deadwood, it just chops you away, and that's unacceptable. But you can do so much more than this. You are more than what you have become. And that is such an inspiring thing for people, and we don't give it to them. We just let people wallow, and we just give them constant pats on the back. And it's really disgusting, man, because we could all be more than what we've become, all of us. And that's such an inspiring message in this constant excuse making and this evil narrative that's in the world, that it's all just this oppressor versus oppressed narrative is so disgusting. I love videos like this. This channel is called Basic Logic. Man, I've watched 2 or 3 of his videos now. This is like the 4th one. This guy's based. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Makes great points. He slaps down the false narratives that you're most likely to hear. And man, I love it. Critical thought, traditional Western values. I love it. You guys should check out his channel, Basic Logic. And I appreciate you stopping by. Be sure to like and subscribe or leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys what you guys think about this. This is awesome to me. I've loved checking out this channel here. But yeah, we got a million more things to cover, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day.